وإذ استسقى موسى لقومه فقلنا اضرب بعصاك الحجر فانفجرت منه 12 عينا قد علم كل أناس مشربهم كلوا واشربوا من رزق الله ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين.
And recall when Moses, peace be upon him, prayed for water for his people, and we replied, strike the rock with your staff, and there gushed out from it 12 springs, and each tribe knew its drinking place. Then you were directed, eat and drink of the sustenance provided by Allah, and do not go about acting wickedly on earth, spreading mischief.
And recall when Moses prayed for water for his people, and we replied, strike the rock with your staff, and there gushed out from it 12 springs, and each tribe knew its drinking place. This rock is still to be found in the Sinai and attracts tourists. It still bears the slits and cracks of the springs. The number of springs was 12 because the Israelite tribes were also 12 in number. God provided one spring for each tribe so that they would not fight each other for water.
وَإِذْ قُلْتُمْ يَا مُوسَى لَن نَّصْبِرَ عَلَى طَعَامٍ وَاحِدٍ فادع لنا ربك يخرج لنا مما تنبت الأرض من بقلها وقثائها وفومها وعدسها وبصلها قال أتستبدلون الذي هو أدنى بالذي هو خير اهبطوا مصرا فإن لكم ما سألتم وضربت عليهم الذلة والمسكنة وباءوا بغضب من الله ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون النبيين بغير الحق ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون.
And recall when you said, O Moses, peace be upon him, surely we cannot put up with one sort of food. So pray to your Lord to bring out for us what the earth produces, its herbs, its cucumbers, and its corn, and its lentils, and its garlic, and its onions. Then Moses, peace be upon him, said, will you take a meaner thing in exchange for what is better? Go down to some city, and there you shall get what you ask for. And ignominy and wretchedness were pitched upon them, and they were laden with the burden of Allah's wrath. This was because they denied the signs of Allah and slew the prophets unrightfully. And all this because they disobeyed and persistently exceeded the limits of the law.
Then Moses said, will you take a meaner thing in exchange for what is better? This does not mean that their real fault lay in asking for things which entailed cultivation instead of availing themselves of manna and quails, which they received without any toil. What is emphasized here is that rather than being concerned with the great purpose for which they had been brought to the Sinai, they relished the foods which gratified their palates to such a degree that they could not forego them even temporarily. This was because they denied the signs of Allah. There are several ways in which one might deny the signs of God. First, one might refuse to accept those teachings of God which one found contrary to one's fancies and desires. Second, one might know that something is from God and yet willfully flout it. Third, one might know well the import of God's directives and yet distort them. And slew the prophets unrightfully. The Israelites recorded their crimes in detail in their own history. Here are just a few examples from the Bible. 1. After the death of Solomon, the state of the Israelites was split into two. The state of Judah with its capital in Jerusalem, and the state of Israel with its capital in Samaria. This was followed by a series of wars between the two states, so that the state of Judah sought the assistance of the Aramean state of Damascus against its own kinsmen. At this, Hamani the seer went under God's direction to Asa the king and rebuked him. Instead of rectifying his behavior, Asa was so angry that he put the seer in the stocks. See 2 Chronicles 16, 7-10. 2. When Elijah denounced the Jews for their worship of Baal and invited them to return to monotheism, Ahab, the king of Israel, pursued him for the sake of his pagan wife, so that he had to take refuge in the mountains of the Sinai Peninsula. On this occasion, according to the Bible, he said, "The people of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thy altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away." 1 Kings 19:14. 3. The same king Ahab imprisoned another prophet, Micah, for no other reason than that of speaking the truth. King Ahab ordered that he should be given only bread and water. See 1 Kings 22:26-7. 4. When idol worship and moral corruption became prevalent in Judah, and the prophet Zechariah raised his voice against them, he was stoned to death in the very court of the house of the Lord. See 2 Chronicles 24:21. 5. When the Israelite state of Samaria was wiped out by the state of Jerusalem, the prophet Jeremiah deplored the condition of the Israelites. He warned them that it was time they set about mending their ways. Otherwise, they would face an even more calamitous end than that of Samaria. The response to this sincere preaching was abuse and curses. He was beaten, imprisoned, put in the stocks, and lowered by ropes into a cistern, where he was left to die of hunger and thirst. He was also accused of various crimes, including treason and conspiracy. See Jeremiah 15, 10, 18, 23, 21-18, 36-40. 6. It is reported of another prophet, Amos, that when he denounced the widespread errors and corruption in the state of Samaria and warned of the evil consequences that follow such misdeeds, he was condemned to exile and told to pursue his prophetic task somewhere beyond its frontiers. See Amos 7, 10-13. 7. When John the Baptist protested against the acts of moral corruption that were brazenly practiced in his court, Herod, the ruler of Judah, first put John into prison, then had him beheaded at the request of a dancing girl, and had his head set on a platter and presented to the girl. See Mark 6, 17-29. 8. The same hostility to prophets is evident from the life of Jesus. The priests and political leaders of Israel ultimately became inflamed against Jesus, who criticized them for their impiety and hypocrisy, and invited them to true faith and righteousness. It was this which prompted them to prepare a false case against him and persuade the Romans to sign a death sentence. Later, when the Roman governor Pilate asked them which of the two prisoners, Jesus or Barabbas, a notorious brigand, should be released on the occasion of the feast, they asked for the release of Barabbas and for the crucifixion of Jesus. Matthew 27, 20-6. This is a shameful chapter in the record of the Jewish nation, to which the Quran refers here in passing. It is evident that when a nation chooses its most notoriously criminal and wicked people for positions of leadership, and its righteous and holy men for Geol and the scaffold, God has no alternative but to lay his curse and damnation on that nation.
إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والنصارى والصابئين من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وعمل صالحا فلهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون.
Whether they are ones who believe in the Arabian prophet, or whether they are Jews, Christians, or Sabians, all who believe in Allah and the last day and do righteous deeds, their reward is surely secure with their Lord. They need have no fear, nor shall they grieve.
They need have no fear, nor shall they grieve. The context of the verse makes it clear that it is not attempting to enumerate in detail all the articles of faith in which one should believe or all the principles of conduct which one should follow in order to merit reward from God. These matters are mentioned elsewhere in their appropriate places. The aim of the verse is merely to repudiate the illusion cherished by the Jews that, by virtue of their being Jews, they have a monopoly of salvation. They had long entertained the notion that a special and exclusive relationship existed between them and God. They thought, therefore, that all who belonged to their group were predestined to salvation regardless of their beliefs and actions, whereas all non-Jews were predestined to serve as fodder for hellfire. To clarify this misgiving, the Jews are told that what really matters in the sight of God is true faith and good deeds rather than formal affiliation with a certain religious community. Whoever has true faith and good deeds to his credit is bound to receive his reward, since God will judge people on the basis of merit rather than on the grounds that a man's name happens to be listed in the world as a member of one religious community or the other.
وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَكُمْ وَرَفَعْنَا فَوْقَكُمُ الطُّورَ خُذُوا مَا آتَيْنَاكُمْ بِقُوَّةٍ وَاذْكُرُوا مَا فِيهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ.
And recall when we made a covenant with you and caused the Mount Sinai to tower above you, saying, "Hold fast to the book that we have given you, and remember the directives and commandments in it, that you be pious."
And recall when we made a covenant with you and caused the mount to tower above you, saying. From the manner in which this incident is described at various places in the Quran, it is obvious that at that time it was quite well known to the Israelites. It is difficult, however, after the passage of many centuries, to be able to speak with certainty about the precise nature of the incident. All we can say is that while the children of Israel were making their covenant in the shadow of Mount Sinai, they witnessed an awesome phenomenon and felt as if the mountain was about to fall upon them. Verse 171 of Surah Al-Araf seems to portray this.
ثُمَّ تَوَلَّيْتُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَكُنتُم مِّنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ.
Then you turned away from your covenant, and had it not been for Allah's grace and mercy upon you, you would have long been utter losers.
وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمُ الَّذِينَ اعْتَدَوْا مِنكُمْ فِي السَّبْتِ فَقُلْنَا لَهُمْ كُونُوا قِرَدَةً خَاسِئِينَ.
And you know the case of those of you who broke the Sabbath, how we said to them, "Become apes, despised and hated."
And you know the case of those of you who broke the Sabbath. Sabbath, for instance, Saturday. It was laid down that the Israelites should consecrate that day for rest and worship. They were required to abstain from all worldly acts, including cooking, which they might neither do themselves nor have their servants do for them. The injunctions in this connection were so strict that violation of the Sabbath was to be punished with death. See Exodus 31:12-17. When religious and moral decadence, however, spread among the Israelites, they indulged in open desecration of the Sabbath, so much so that in Jewish towns trade and commerce were carried out in broad daylight. How we said to them, "Become apes, despised and hated." The details of this incident are mentioned later in Surah 7, verse 163. The exact manner in which their transformation into apes took place is disputed. Some scholars are of the opinion that the transformation was a physical one, while others hold that they were invested with the attributes characteristics of apes. But both the words and the manner in which this incident is recounted in the Quran seem to suggest that what took place was a physical transformation of certain persons into apes rather than just a moral metamorphosis. What seems plausible to me is that while their minds were allowed to remain intact, their bodies were changed into those of apes.
فجعلناها نكالا لما بين يديها وما خلفها وموعظة للمتقين.
And thus we made their end a warning for the people of their own time and for the succeeding generations, and an admonition to the God-fearing.
وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرَةً قَالُوا أَتَتَّخِذُنَا هُزُوًا قال أعوذ بالله أن أكون من الجاهلين.
And then recall when Moses, peace be upon him, said to his people, Behold, Allah commands you to slaughter a cow. They said, Are you jesting with us? Moses, peace be upon him, answered, I seek refuge in Allah that I should behave in the manner of the ignorant.
قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما هي قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة لا فارض ولا بكر عوان بين ذلك فافعلوا ما تؤمرون.
They said, Pray to your Lord that he make clear to us what she is like. Moses, peace be upon him, answered, He says, She is a cow, neither old nor immature, but of an age in between the two. Do, then, what you have been commanded.
قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما لونها قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة صفراء فاقع لونها تسر الناظرين.
They said, Pray to your Lord that he make clear to us of what color she is. Moses, peace be upon him, answered, He says, She is a yellow cow with a bright color which is pleasing to those who see.
قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما هي إن البقرة شابه علينا وإنا إن شاء الله لمهتدون.
They said, Pray to your Lord that he make clear to us what cow she is. Cows seem much alike to us, and if Allah wills, we shall be guided.
قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة لا ذلول تثير الأرض ولا تسقي الحرث مسلمة لا شية فيها قالوا الآن جئت بالحق فذبحوها وما كادوا يفعلون.
Moses answered, Lo, he says, she is a cow unyoked to plow the earth or to water the tillage, one that has been kept secure, with no blemish on her. Thereupon they cried out, Now you have come forth with the information that will direct us aright. And they slaughtered her, although they scarcely seemed to do so. Through contact with neighboring peoples, the Israelites had become infested with the attitude of sanctifying the cow. In fact, they had even become accustomed to cow worship. In order to disabuse the Jews of this, they were ordered to slaughter the cow. Their professed belief that God alone was worthy of worship could be tested only by making them slaughter with their own hands what they had formerly worshipped. This test was indeed a hard one, since their hearts were not fully imbued with faith. Hence they tried to shelve the issue by resorting to inquiries about the kind of animal they were required to slaughter. But the more they inquired, the narrower the strait became for them, until the indications were as obvious as if someone had put his finger precisely on the particular animal they were required to slaughter, the animal which had for so long been an object of their worship. The Old Testament also mentions the incident, but there is no reference to the manner in which the Jews tried to evade the matter. See Numbers 19, 1-10.
وَإِذْ قَتَلْتُمْ نَفْسًا فَادَّارَأْتُمْ فِيهَا وَاللَّهُ مُخْرِجٌ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ.
And recall, when you killed a man and then began to remonstrate and cast the blame of killing upon one another, even though Allah was determined to bring to light what you were hiding.
فَقُلْنَا اضْرِبُوهُ بِبَعْضِهَا كَذَلِكَ يُحْيِي اللَّهُ الْمَوْتَى وَيُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ.
Then we ordered, smite the corpse with a part of it. Thus does Allah bring the dead to life, and thus does He show His signs, that you might understand.
Thus does Allah bring the dead to life, and thus does He show His signs that you might understand. At least one thing becomes clear from this statement, that the slain person was restored to life at least long enough to indicate his assassins. But the actual words in which the order smite the corpse with a part of it is couched tend to create a measure of ambiguity. Nevertheless, the meaning inferred by the early Quranic commentators that the order was to smite the slain man's body with some part of the slaughtered cow seems to me plausible. Two birds were thus killed with one stone. First, they were made to behold a sign of God's power, and second, the notion that the cow possessed any holiness or sanctity was shattered. For if the object of their worship, the cow, had any supernatural power, some calamity should have visited them as a consequence of slaughtering it. But no calamity took place. On the contrary, killing the cow seemed to be beneficial insofar as striking a dead man with a part of it brought him back to life.